Hello. Welcome on back to my channel. We have so much to catch up on. I hope you've been doing well. I recently had the pleasure to attend a brand trip with Tarte Cosmetics, and I mention this because this trip inspired me to create today's sun-kissed, fresh off the beach glam that's really in trend at this time of year. So if you want to learn how I used a full face of Tarte Cosmetics to create this look right here, then keep on watching. So to begin, I'm taking the Tarte Drink of H2O serum and using this to prep our model's skin with. This is nice for this kind of look because, well, for a couple of reasons. One, it's extremely lightweight. So whether you're in a humid climate or you're running errands throughout the day in the sunshine, it's not going to feel heavy on the skin. And then two, the ingredients. It has the niacinamide in there, which I'm a big fan of because it helps smooth, brighten, and reduce inflammation. And it also contains hyaluronic acid to retain and deliver moisture in the skin. So overall, a pretty straightforward, non-complicated skincare product. Next, I'm taking the Tarte Maracuja Oil to give the chest and shoulders a glow. I love bringing the skincare down to this area because I think it makes such a big difference to the overall look. Yes, of course, it's nice when the skin on the face is dewy and highlighted, but when that healthy sheen is brought down to the shoulders as well, it really pulls the whole look together. Now what I'm going to do here is take the Tarte Clean Slate Blur Balm and use this to prime the areas around her nose, along with the chin and a little on the forehead too, but this is going to help a tad bit with minimizing the pores and help the makeup grip onto the skin, especially since Mia told me she tends to get oily around the nose area throughout the day. Now that we're done with the skin prep, I'm going to take the new Tarte Shape Radiant Concealer in the shade 365 and use this as a foundation today. I'm using it sparingly by only pressing in a small bit to the center T-zone of the face before I blend this in with a makeup sponge, which you'll see in a second. But the whole story behind this, as I mentioned in my intro, is that I went to Turks and Caicos with Tarte in celebration of their new launch, which is this Shape Tape Radiant Concealer. They have, of course, their iconic concealer in the original formula, and we've been using that for years, but I've been playing around with this Radiant one for a little while now, and I found that I really love using it for those no makeup kind of looks. So it leaves behind this really beautiful like natural finish to the skin that's still lightweight and breathable. So to show you this, I'm actually going to use 3 different shades of this concealer today. One as the base color, which is what I'm applying now, and then in a moment you'll see me use a deeper shade to bronze with and then a lighter shade to conceal with. So now that we have this blended in, I'm taking the deeper tone in the shade 57N and applying this to the back of my hand before lightly applying this to the perimeter of the face, like around the forehead and below the cheekbones. And I'll then head back to my sponge before further blending this in. One thing I will say that I didn't really think of till now is that if you're looking to achieve full coverage in your complexion, this concealer can do that for you, but it may not be the most practical. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're better off using a full coverage foundation and then only using this product to contour and conceal the under eyes with, because otherwise the amount of concealer you'd have to use up it just wouldn't be practical. So depending on what your goal is here, it's something to keep in mind. But because I'm looking to keep the coverage light and natural today, this works out perfectly. Next up, I'm taking the Maracuja Juicy Shift blush in the shade Rose and popping this right onto the cheeks. This is the perfect sun-kissed color on Mia's skin tone. It even has this dewy sheen to it. It's not quite a cream formula because, you know, those usually dry down on the skin with a satin finish. This has more of a glossy type kind of look and feel to it. So because of that, I wouldn't recommend using this on top of a lot of powders. I think it's better off alone for a fresh-faced kind of look. For concealer here, as you see, I'm popping this right into the lower inner corner of the eyes before I blend it in with a sponge. It's the Shape Tape Radiant Concealer, of course, but what I've done here is I've taken the first shade we used all over the face a moment ago, and I brightened it up by adding the tiniest amount of a lighter shade. I didn't want a like a super bright under eye for this look, which I know it's not something you hear me say very often, but I do think there's a time and place for that, and this isn't one of them. I don't want the skin to look like it's being weighed down by makeup. And as you see here up close, the skin is looking super natural and glowy. But with that said, I'm going to take the Shape Tape Translucent Setting Powder and with a very light hand, set the under eye concealer into place. You hear me say it all the time, but I do believe there's a difference between looking glowy and then looking flat out sweaty, right? Like, we don't want to look like we just ran a marathon. So to prevent that from happening, I'm applying powder in the areas that shine isn't the most flattering. On most people, that's around the nose area because that's where we tend to, usually sweat, and the under eyes especially because we don't want the concealer to crease or for the mascara to transfer. And then for the rest of the face, I'll take a larger, fluffier brush to press in a little powder to areas like the center of the forehead, chin, and jawline. All right, I'm gonna show you a little trick I like to use. For those of you who don't like to use powder, I'll take my powder puff and press this into the areas I want to bring down any shine. There's no powder in here, but the fabric of this will help soak up any excess oil without having to apply more product on. And yeah, it works like a charm. Now here, I'm taking the Glamazon Cheek Palette and using the bronzing shade in here to further emphasize the liquid bronzer we earlier applied. You'll even see me take the blush shades in this palette to sweep across her cheeks and nose bridge. Keep in mind, I'm not using a lot of these powders. I want to retain the hydrated sheen to the skin, but just a little here and a little there to reinforce the products we earlier used. Next up, I'm taking the Glow Tape highlighter in the shade Golden Glow and applying this onto the highest points of her face to almost kind of what we did with the blush and bronzer, reinforcing those pigments underneath, and boy does that make her skin glow. I love, love, love the difference this made. It gave that highlight an extra boost of brightness that polishes off the skin. But notice here, I'm not dragging this on with a brush and buffing it in. That would disrupt the products that we have underneath it that we just worked so hard to blend in. So light tapping motions with your makeup sponge is key here, and I find it works the best to apply on a liquid highlighter. To start on the eyes, I'm taking the deeper tone concealer we had used earlier to contour with and buffing in a small amount onto the upper eyelid. In a way, we're using this almost as a liquid eyeshadow. It's adding a sheer wash of color to the lid and making for a nice backdrop for the shadows we use next. For eyeshadow, I'm taking this shade here from the Tartelette In a Bloom Clay eyeshadow palette and using this to set that liquid concealer into place and to build up some depth to this look. What's nice about this eyeshadow moment is that it doesn't have to be perfect and we don't have to spend tons of time blending and blending, which makes it pretty easy, even for beginners. Next up, using this shade here from the same palette, I'm sweeping this onto the lid, brow bone, and inner corner. This shadow is very similar to that of a highlighter. It has these beautiful golden reflect shimmer particles in them that give the eyes that spotlight effect. Again, you don't have to be too precise with the placement here. All you gotta do is get the pigment onto the eyelid and let the brush do the work for you. For added definition, I'm mixing these two shades here to lightly define the upper and lower lash line. I am using a flat shadow brush to do this with, just pressing the shadow on, wiggling it through the lash line, and lifting it up for a soft and diffused transition. Of course, you can use a pencil or a gel for this, but I find those can be a little harsh sometimes. There's something nice about a subtle amount of shadow at the lash line to open up the eye, but without looking too glam. You know what I mean? It's still soft and effortless. Now for lashes, I'm using the Tartelette Tubing Mascara and running a light amount through her top lashes. I'm keeping most of this placement towards the outer half of the lash to achieve a more lifted look. And today, we're not adding bottom mascara, just keeping it above the eyes. For the brows, I'm using this FULLfill Framer Brow Pencil in the shade Black Brown. So there's two sides to this. You have the pencil side, and then there's this wax side that I'm using here. I'm running this against the brows to get the hairs fully saturated in the product, and then I'll take a spoolie to brush the hairs back down into place. Now this wax has, a light to medium hold, I'd say. So if you're looking for that laminated brow look, or if you have really coarse curly brow hairs, this may not be the product for you, but for me today, for this scenario, it's perfect. And as for the pencil side here, I'm just using a light hand to extend the tail of the brow and to fill in any sparse areas to achieve a polished, clean look. To start on the lips, I'm taking this Maracuja, I can't say it, Maracuja Juicy Lip Liner in the shade Rosy Brown to trace the borders of her lips with. I think staying with a nude shade aligns with the beachy, sun-kissed aesthetic I'm going for, especially once the hairstylist, Adrienne Cobian, did her hair and the whole look came together at the end. I knew we made the right decision with this lip color. It's simple, timeless, and low maintenance. Now here, I'm actually taking the same blush we had used earlier on the cheeks and using it as a lipstick to add some color to the center of the lips. Kind of using this to drag the lip liner forward and diffuse it out for that lived-in hint of color effect. One last thing I want to do here is to take the Maracuja Glossy Lip Oil in the shade White Peach and use this to add a high shine finish. The color is very sheer, so it's not going to alter the other colors we have underneath it. It's just a nice touch to make the lips look hydrated and plump, and in my humble opinion, the perfect way to finish how I created this sun-kissed makeup look on our naturally beautiful model. There we have it, kids. I hope you all enjoyed today's tutorial. If you did, be sure to give this video a big ol' thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out more of my work on my Instagram at Painted by Spencer. And until next time, I'll see you soon.